Hello guys and gals, it's Soulfax here and welcome to another one of my videos. And in this video we are celebrating an amazing milestone. Finally, after years of trying and doing this YouTube stuff very unprofessionally, I finally managed to reach 400 subscribers. Yay! Those were those confetti things that people shoot out when they celebrate stuff. And to celebrate, I'm going to be quote-unquote giving back to the community. I know it sounds very narcissistic of me, considering that I haven't taken from the community a lot and I don't have a lot to bring to the community, but yeah, just stay with me for a minute. So a lot of you have probably watched either me or some other YouTubers do YouTube videos, in this case War Thunder, and you've been wondering, well, I want to do that, but I don't know how to do it, and I really don't have the inclination or the time to go online and watch a lot of tutorials on how to do this thing. Because there are three distinct steps to making any video and uploading it to YouTube. Firstly, recording the video, rendering the material, and then lastly, uploading it. So, to make matters simple, I'm going to be showing you how to do those three distinct steps in this one under 10-minute video. I'm going to be showing you how to record your gameplay, how to render it, and thirdly how to upload it on YouTube. So let's get started with all of that. So the first step in making any YouTube video is actually recording the gameplay, and I will tell you right away that recording a gameplay is very taxing on the computer, on your computer that you're using. It is very resource intensive. So unfortunately, some of the older computers, and I'm talking about computers before the 2010s, so 2010, 2009, 2008, will have some problem recording War Thunder in a stable frame rate at a reasonable resolution and graphic settings. So these minimum requirements that I'm talking about are completely made up. I just kind of calculated them in my head because I have some experience with recording a lot of video games, but don't take them for granted and please don't hold me to my words because like I said, I'm no expert at this, but I have some experience. So if your computer has at least 4 gigabytes of RAM in it, if your graphics card is at least around the GTX 500 range or the HD 5000 to 6000 range, and your processor isn't a complete piece of shit, you will be easily able to record War Thunder at 720p resolution, at 30 frames per second, and at high graphical settings. I will explain what 720p means in a couple of minutes, but let's just get down to checking how you can actually know if your computer meets these minimum requirements. So firstly, go to your start menu and you open up the search bar. In the search bar, you write in DXDIAG. And a program called DXDIAG will pop up. You press enter and in a couple of seconds a window will open, the DirectX diagnostic tool, which is a great little tool which shows you everything that you have in your computer from the hardware and the software that is running on the hardware. So you can see here I have a processor that is an AMD I constantly say AMDs, an AMD FX 3600 series with 8 gigabytes of RAM attached to it. Well, not attached to it, but attached to them. You get what I'm saying. And my GPU is a GeForce GTX 750 Ti. So if you have a computer that is similar to mine, you will be easily able to record War Thunder at 720p resolution, 60 frames per second, and at maximum graphical settings. Now the second part to recording any gameplay is actually choosing your preferred software. So when it comes to choosing your preferred recording software, it all comes down to the fact whether or not you're prepared to pay real money for that software, or whether you prefer to go through some less legal channels to acquire the said software, or maybe would you like to use an open source free to use software that is produced by some very amazing people. Now firstly, I need to say that I do not condone piracy in any way, shape or form, and I do not condone illegal downloading of licensed products over the internet. Now that I got that out of the way, let me just list you some of the recording software that is very popular at the moment. So firstly, you have Fraps. Fraps is a very easy to use software, but it's not very easily customizable and it takes a lot out of your computer, which means that it takes a lot of frames off your recording if you're not like recording on a very amazing computer. The second point, actually the second program, the second software, is Open Broadcaster software, which is a free-to-use software which is mainly intended for streaming video games, but it can also be used for recording the same video games and saving them onto your computer. So the first software I want to talk about is of course Fraps. Now Fraps is easy to use, not highly customizable software, but it's definitely a huge resource hog when it comes to your computer. Now when you download this thing, you either purchase it or maybe pirate it, you go over to the Movies tab. In this tab, it's very easy to configure. The only thing you need to do is select your output folder where the files that you recorded will be saved. You need to select your video capture hotkey and then select at which frame rate you want your gameplay to cap out on. Now, this doesn't mean that if you select 60 frames per second, that your gameplay will be 60 frames per second. No, it means that your gameplay will not reach over 60 frames per second. It will only at maximum be 60 frames per second. Other than that, you can just mess around with recording here, whether or not you want to record the microphone at the same time, which I would not recommend, and I will get to that later, but that's pretty much the gist of it. Now, the downsides of Fraps are that it's a huge resource hog, which means that you're going to lose a couple of frames at least when you're recording with it. Let's say that you have a computer that is running War Thunder at stable 60 frames per second, but it's using the most resources in the world to run 60 frames per second. If you run Fraps and start recording at the same time, your gameplay will go down to around 55 and maybe even 50 frames per second. So it's not the most optimal recording software, especially for people who don't have amazing computers. Now, the second software we want to talk about is naturally Open Broadcast software, which is a free open source software that anybody can download and use. It's primarily used as a platform for streaming video games over to platforms such as YouTube or Twitch TV. Now, when it comes to Open Broadcast software, it's a little bit more complicated to set up, and I don't want to go into it. I will link a video in the description bar and in the annotation on the screen to show you how to set it up very quickly and very easily. It's going to be one of my own videos, but I just don't want to waste time on this video because I want to keep it as short as possible. And I'm wasting time just talking about it. But anyhow, it's either Fraps or Open Broadcast software. Now, if you're lucky, and if you're a GTX user who has a relatively new graphics card, you might have this thing called GeForce Experience. And with that GeForce Experience comes bundled Shadowplay. Now, Shadowplay is an amazingly simple and amazingly efficient program to use to record your video games. But unfortunately, if you're not a GTX user, and even if you're a GTX user and you don't have a graphics card that is newer than the 600 series, so 600 and above, GTX 600 and above, only those users will be able to use Shadowplay. And if you do have Shadowplay available to you, I recommend you use Shadowplay. It's very easy to set up and it's very easy to use, and it doesn't impact your performance all that much, and you can really simply set it up, and it really doesn't perform. I just said that like 3 times in a row. But yeah, use Shadowplay if you have it available. So after picking up your preferred recording software, the next step is choosing in which resolution, quality, and frame rate you're going to be recording your gameplay in. This is a very important step because if you mess this up, your video is going to look like shit. The initial quality of your recording is going to be paramount to the end quality of your video. That's a weird sentence. But anyhow, I want to point you in this direction. This is the site, this is the recommended uploading, encoding, and setting site provided to us by YouTube, which gives you all the information you need regarding this subject. Now, the most important things here to get right is first the resolution and the aspect ratio. YouTube Player functions in 16:9 aspect ratio, which means that videos that are not 16:9 aspect ratio, let's say 4:3 aspect ratio, will have black bars to the side, and that is not a very optimal, as you can see here. It looks kind of weird, and this looks proper. But anyhow, the most popular resolution that I've seen is the 1280 x 720 resolution. That's the resolution that I'm currently using, and is a resolution that you should probably use unless you have the best computer in the world. Now, after that, the second thing to consider is the frame rate. YouTube players can only show up to 60 frames per second. And if you record a video that is 120 frames per second or 85 frames per second, those frames will not be shown and your computer will just be struggling in vain. So just keep it to 60 frames per second and it's all going to be nice and well. So after you've gotten your gameplay recorded, the next step is actually getting that gameplay into an editing software, editing it and then rendering it and then uploading it to YouTube. I know it sounds a little bit complicated and a lot of work, but just keep with me here. So there's a couple of programs or software that you might want to use, but whatever people tell you on the interwebs, they are very complicated to use. Sony Vegas and Adobe Premiere Pro are the most popular programs for semi-amateur YouTubers like I am, who know something about some things. Now, the one that I want to show you how to work in is Windows Movie Maker. And again, you might be thinking, why don't you show us those better programs? Firstly, that you need to pay for them. And if you don't want to pirate them, which I do not condone in any way, shape or form, you need to pay for them. And they're very expensive and they're very difficult to actually use. So the most simple and the most free, because it's completely free, software that you might want to use is Windows Movie Maker. So when you download this thing and open it, you're going to be greeted by this screen. Now, to start actually editing your video, you need to add this video to the software. And to do that, you press this button here, you choose the clip that you've just recorded, and it's going to be popping up in here. So to break this whole thing down, on the left is how your video looks in any point of the video. You can play it, you can stop it, you can zoom past it, and you can just look at what you did in that piece of recording. And to the right side is your timeline. Now your timeline is very important because in this timeline, everything about your video will be shown. What effects you used, what captions, some titles, some picture that you added, some audio, some additional commentary that you added, everything will be shown here. Every single editing software in the world has a similar timeline. After you've added your gameplay to Windows Movie Maker, the next steps depend entirely upon you. If you want to have some narration in it, you have two choices to make. You can either use the built-in narration thingy here, which will record your microphone, or you can use a third-party program like I'm using. Audacity is a great program to use if you want to record your audio and be able to manipulate it. But again, it's a little bit more complicated to use and you need to know some things about it, so either watch a tutorial on it online or just use this thing right here. Now, after you record your narration or you just want to add some music, you click this button here. You choose your file and the music or the narration will be instantly added to the timeline. You will be able to move it around, crop it around using the edit tools here and just do a lot of things to it. You can adjust the levels and stuff like that, but I'm not going to be showing that because it's really not necessary. You can easily find that out by just doing some experimentation by yourself. And after you've done that, after you've made your video how you want it to be, the next step would be rendering that video and exporting it from Windows Movie Maker. Now to do that, you need to click on this button here. After you open this button, a big window will open with a lot of things here, which might sound a little bit confusing, but luckily for us, there is a Create Custom Settings option. After you do this, you will be able to create a custom settings. You can name it, you can just use a predetermined settings, then actually edit it. But what I like to use is do exactly this. You set up the proper width and height, which is the resolution of the video, the resolution of the original gameplay that you recorded. The bit rate should be around, I would say 16. In theory, the bit rate should be unlimited. But if you're using a bitrate for a 60 frames per second video, it should be around 16,000. So yeah, that's a little bit a lot, but still it's a great thing to do because you're gonna get a much better quality of the video. The frame rate again depends entirely upon which frame rate you actually record your video in. Lastly, the audio format is really not all that important, you just want to keep it where it is. It's going to show you estimated how many megabytes per minute of the video it's going to be. And after that, you just press save and you need to put a name here. After that, you just put a name here, let's say that, save, and you're going to be prompted into where to export this video. I will not be showing you this because I'm currently recording a video, and if I start exporting a video while recording a video, it's probably going to crash my computer because that's a very resource consuming task for a computer. After you've done that, you're going to get a video on your computer which is completely rendered and ready for upload on YouTube. So the only thing left to do is go to YouTube, press the big upload button, and then browse through your computer and then select the actual rendered video, which will upload to YouTube in a couple of hours depending on your internet speed. Luckily, my internet speed is very fast, so it's going to upload 1 gigabyte video is going to upload in less than like 15 minutes. You just set up some titles, some descriptions, set some tags, and the world is ready to see how poorly you followed my very simple tutorial on how to make YouTube videos. Now, with all honesty, if you want to know more about doing YouTube videos, just Google in how to make YouTube videos into YouTube. Google in how to make YouTube videos into YouTube? What? Just search YouTube. There's a lot of great tutorials that are more expansive and more informative than mine, which will show you exactly how to make YouTube videos like a professional. But yeah, it's been all for me. My name has been Soulfax. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.